Is there a way to like create some kind of website that paints over the YouTube algorithm, like some kind of meta YouTube where you can pick what kind of algorithm you want?
If I'm looking for something between, a hair metal between 1988 and 1989, there's no way to find that on any music service.
But that's one of those things, like people have contacted radio stations in the area where supposedly this was recorded and nobody knows. And like Reddit, a whole team of people on Reddit is there trying to figure it out, and nobody can figure it out. Okay, everybody, welcome to another Kitchen Sink Microscopy. I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and we'd love it if you'd like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and all that good stuff that makes YouTube happy and the algorithm, all that. Yeah, leave a comment too, please.
And I am Casey Rochford, and you cannot prove whether or not I'm wearing pants right now. And if you want to find out if I'm wearing pants, watch the whole episode, and maybe I'll stand up a little bit, and you'll get to see some.
That'll be a Patreon exclusive.
But hang out to the end, because we'll have a 20th anniversary edition of one of our coolest albums, and you'll want to hear it because it's pretty badass. So we have a guest today. Troy Lawman is joining us.
Troy Lawman. I like trolling you guys in the comments section. I'm known as Raymond Hall in the comments section, just as a tribute to Tacoma.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
So we were kind of thinking of talking about music. We've never really done any like full episode about like controversy within the music world, and one of the things that we were kind of just discussing in the green room, let's say, was the issues of like copyrights and covering songs and stuff, and like why is it like such a pain in the ass to do that, or even like host like your own like fan video of a famous song or something.
Well, especially what because I've done a few of those, and it's like it's a fan video for a band or song that I really like, and I look out there and they don't have an official video, so I thought, hey, I'll make one. And that almost should be allowed, because it also kind of propagates knowledge of a band. Maybe somebody had never heard of them before, and it might encourage that viewer to go purchase their music, or even like we ran into before, like when we were talking about Typo Negative and how awesome they are, like trying to include just a short clip of their music. Like we're not trying to steal anything, we're exalting their excellence. And oh no, YouTube didn't like that.
Right. I had to like slow it down and like heavily filter the visual of the clip, just so it wouldn't get picked up by YouTube.
That's crazy. I've been working on an enhanced version of a Queensryche video, and I haven't uploaded it yet because I'm sure that it'll probably get taken down immediately. But of course,
will. Yep.
Where I got the video was not from Queensryche. It was from some Joe Blow on YouTube, and
yeah,
they got away with it. So I'm like, all right, well, can I do the same now? Probably not.
No, and that's EMI more than Queensryche.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's never ever, well, for the most part, it's never the actual songwriters that that gets submitted to. It gets submitted to their record label. Except for the Eagles. That's one that you definitely can't upload to YouTube. Don Henley himself disapproves all of those videos. You'll sit there all day just disapproving videes.
Huh. I did a parody song though of Desperado, and that was okay.
Oh, you got away with it? Nice.
Yeah.
Is it on? It's on YouTube.
It is, yes. I don't think it got taken down. It's called Social Distance.
Nice.
And instead of Desperado, it was Social Distance.
Yeah, see, if you change some of the words, maybe it might confuse the algorithm.
I think,
I mean,
yeah, that
really
is
good.
that is definitely fair use.
Mhm.
When it's an obvious parody.
Parody is considered to be fair use.
Mhm.
And any playing of something, well, so critically for fair use to work, it's like you can't just show, like for instance, if you're doing a review of a movie, you can't show the whole movie in its entirety, but you can show clips of it as you're commenting about various parts of the movie. That is totally allowed under fair use. Like, here's this one scene that I'm talking about, and typically when it's in a critique or educational context, it's totally allowed. And it would be with music as well. Or, I mean, it is, but YouTube is like more draconian than like anybody.
Unless you're totally hyping up Red Dwarf and putting Red Dwarf clips in, and then the BBC is like, no, take that shit down.
Yeah, even short clips.
Yeah, it really depends
Fucking
on the label.
Brits.
And I found like independent content sometimes I can get away with. Sometimes like if I can't find it on a music service like Spotify, the algorithm sometimes doesn't pick it up either. But I've heard that YouTube has improved their algorithm significantly about a year ago, that it'll kind of detect anything that, even if it's already not out there on the internet, it can tell you what that is if it had been uploaded somewhere else on the web. But
actually, you're right about that, because I have a video that I made of when Stabbing Westward brought my wife and I up on stage and did a song from their self-titled album, which is no longer licensed on any streaming service. It is not dinged at all.
Interesting. Yeah, if it's something that I find on Bandcamp or something that isn't very well known at all, I can get away with it for now. 6 months down the road, something else could trigger, because I've noticed this with some of my content that would be approved initially, and then 6 months later, right, it's banned, right? Because it rescans through your videos. And I've learned that if you edit your video, like you change the title, you change the thumbnail or the description or whatever, it rescans through it. And you know, I think for you guys, it's not as likely that your content would get banned as mine would. But if you're talking about something taboo, in your video, then yeah, it might pick it up, especially if it's something that's a hot button political issue or something right now. You could probably talk about hot button political issues 2 years ago. Like you could talk about stuff, like during the pandemic era and get away with it now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Israel, and I can't even say the H word now in combination with that, because that is a problem, even though it's like it's a thing that's happening, right? People have opinions about that, and no, well, that's verboten, not allowed. You can't talk about it. It's like, what?
We're all walking on eggshells, almost to the point like we're going to have a conversation about music, and if I mention the name Typo Negative, it might even see Typo Negative in my shirt and be like, that's copyright infringement. I mean, it's getting to that point now. It's not all YouTube they're kind of being held to this because of fear of litigation from record labels and content owners and things like that.
Well,
but
you're right. They're being overly cautious is what it is. Like they do have a lot of wiggle room in that regard, but I think they're just being cautious.
Well, yeah, I mean, Google wanted, they had that device, Google TV, that pulled down content from the internet and displayed it on your TV screen, right? and they were being threatened to be sued into oblivion over that. And then they started censoring certain content all the way down to the point where it was almost useless, right? So, they gave up on that idea. Now YouTube is full legit, right, from a legal perspective. But it's not the same YouTube that we remember from 2005, where you can upload anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I found so much new music on YouTube that I've never heard. Rare stuff from the 80s, from the 90s.
That's
and
the
you'll never
beauty
see
of it.
anywhere else.
I like a lot of my favorite artists and songs.
And Napster was all like for that too,
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But like a lot of my favorite artists and songs today were ones I had never heard of until I went down like a YouTube rabbit hole and ended up in the wonderful part of YouTube, like the forgotten corners, where it's like songs that hardly anybody's heard and stuff. And it's like, that's a good thing. That's I'll ask the two of you, do you think it's harming artists for people to post an artist's music into YouTube or remix it or do a video or something like that?
No, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite.
Especially as a new artist, you want your exposure as in many places as you can get it. So if you ended up on someone's mixtape or on someone's radio show, you're not really going to want to shake them down for the few pennies of royalties that you're going to get. You're happy that someone else heard it, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and in particular, if it is, say, like a mixtape, and you include somebody's song in there, like chances are it's stylistically similar. It like, okay, if you like all the other songs in this mixtape and you land on this one that you've never heard of before, chances are it's one you'll like, and you might buy their merch or albums or whatnot, go to their concerts or something.
Well, their algorithm used to be a lot better for matching stuff that is stylistically similar. Like if you're watching a Depeche Mode video, it might line it up with something that would be like similar to a band like Camouflage or something like that, or something that was inspired by Camouflage that's very similar that you have never heard of before. And now, it's like you watch the Depeche Mode video and then you get some news clips and then you get some irrelevant stuff in that related.
What's up with that? It's always news clips. Always.
It used to be really good, matching good content, and now and I know why, because it's like people pay for that ad space, but it's not as good as it used to be. I wish that there were custom filters that you could say, I'm looking for music content between the years 1985 and 1989 that are considered to be German synth pop, right? And you will never be able to get that out of YouTube, even though it's on there, right? It's on there, but you can't pull it together.
What if you could even do something like, instead of just simply searching for things between a particular time period, what if you could like sort things by view count, so things that are lesser known are more towards the top? So like, oh, hey, if you're digging around for some kind of like really obscure song or something that like nobody has ever heard of.
Is there a way to like create some kind of website that paints over the YouTube algorithm? Like some kind of meta YouTube where you can pick what kind of algorithm you want? Like I want to see unknown artists, like
you have their API, you can probably write a custom query to display that kind of content where you can go and filter by lesser known songs. But I don't think anything is tagged on YouTube. So like if we're talking about, synth pop, if it's not tagged in the video somewhere, then it's not going to pull it. So it kind of depends on who's uploading it and what they're tagging it with also. But I've written to Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music. I've asked them for a search filter that really lets you browse their entire catalog, where like if you are looking for something very specific, they would need to tag all their music with subgenres and all that kind of stuff. But if I'm looking for something between, a hair metal between 1988 and 1989, there's no way to find that on any music service. You can only rely on what they recommend that you listen to. Like, it does a decent job with a radio station that would play similar music to Iron Maiden.
Even radio stations can't figure out what was actually from the 80s. They constantly play Jet City Woman on an 80s mix. Like, it was 1990.
Yeah, they'll throw 90s stuff in there. They'll throw modern stuff in there. And you can't tell it to be limited to a certain time period, And the reason why I'd want to do that is because I'm trying to find other things from that time period that I haven't heard yet. And it's out there, but it's lost, in the abyss of the World Wide Web. And I don't think anybody has any interest in fixing that,
Actually, this kind of segues nicely into something that just popped into my head. You've heard about the most mysterious song on the internet, right?
No, I haven't.
Somebody recorded off of the radio back in like the 80s on a cassette, and it's an unknown, like, kind of 80s band. Like, it's hard to describe, but you can almost say it's kind of, I don't know. Well, you can find the actual song on YouTube, just as is, including like ones that have been a little bit remastered, so they sound a little better. But that's one of those things. Like, people have contacted radio stations in the area where supposedly this was recorded, and nobody knows. And like Reddit, a whole team of people on Reddit is there trying to figure it out, and nobody can figure it out.
Well, just try to cover it, and all of a sudden, like, it's gonna get flagged.
Yep, and then you can figure out who has it. No, but it like, presumably, I think the general consensus is it was a demo that was sent into a radio station that the DJ liked and played, and they never went anywhere. So it was just like this kind of like dead end song.
Well, wow. I think we should start some kind of hashtag or something where people that had like fucking gold and it didn't get picked up for whatever reason, like it wasn't cool enough at the time or ahead of its time or whatever, right? Like put that shit up on YouTube now and let people that are like total audiophiles like us, like, dig it up and find something new to hear.
Yeah, it's like a secret society of YouTube, like, if you know what this hashtag is, you can find a bunch of cool stuff.
Right.
If everybody used that, and it would have to be like a real unique identifier, a real unique name, but that would be a good idea, and I wonder, even if, still some of that content would be filtered out, because I know that I use hashtags to find stuff on YouTube and there's still irrelevant information and that's coming back, and it's really kind of by design, because I know it never used to be that bad. But
so YouTube only uses 3 hashtags. If you put any more hashtags than that in your video,
I've heard that, yeah,
it's not even picked up.
Wow.
Which is like, why?
Yeah, I've even heard Google say that, hashtags are kind of a waste of time, which is kind of funny to hear them say that, because we're basically helping them label their content, the content that's on YouTube.
When you upload a video, they even tell you that the tags are a waste of time and you should only use it for common misspellings.
Right. That's what I heard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a useful thing for categorization. Why not use that to its fullest? Especially because like the YouTube algorithm isn't very good in understanding or comprehending what a particular piece of content is.
Yeah.
But the person,
I can tell obviously, you the YouTube tags do work, because on my minute microscopy I did on nudity, when I look at it commonly gets viewed over time pretty steadily, and when I look at the analytics for what people are typing in, they're like big titties and blah blah blah, like,
nice. That's awesome.
People looking for porn get kitchen sink microscopy. So
I should tag all my stuff with that. I gotta find a song that has like XXX in the title or something, something sleazy in the title. So when that band is listed in the comments, oh, actually, I can't do that anymore. I can't list the band in the comments. That'll trigger it to get banned as well. So I have to put it. Well, I can't list it in the description. I can put it down in the comments. That's fine. But if I put it in the description,
just tag the video with the entirety of Too Short's lyrics. Like,
oh yeah, you'll probably get a viral video after doing that. With all of those search terms, it's crazy. Yeah, what people are looking for on YouTube. For some reason, everybody that sees my channel is coming from South America in particular. There are some from Germany, there are some from France, but nothing even close to what we see in South America, like Peru and Chile in particular. Brazil a little bit, but for some reason, I don't know what. I mean, I know that scene is kind of big down there, but
you would love the club scene here, by the way, in Germany.
I know.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of that stuff comes out of Germany.
Yep.
But very little of it is seen in Germany. But yeah, I really would. Now I was looking at that link that you sent me, and that's actually in New Jersey, isn't it? Are you coming?
Jersey or New York or something like that? Yeah, it's in a castle.
Like, yeah, I saw that.
Who knew there was a castle there? But
all of those bands are really good. They're mostly from Europe. There are a couple from the US, and darkwave. That genre, darkwave, is actually kind of popular again. Where the best example I can give where that term came from with how it got sort of, I don't know, not really commercialized, but well known in the underground was the band Zymox.
Yeah. And
they
then
had
Clan
one
Zymox.
That name Zymox. And then there was a whole bunch of others that are now coming out that use that as like a model, this kind of combination between synth and guitar, post-punk and synth music that makes up a lot of those bands that are on that festival. And Stabbing Westward too, to some extent, but they're more industrial sounding, Yeah. And all of that is kind of comes from the same umbrella of, dark underground music.
I was just talking to my wife about Stabbing Westward not really fitting into any box. Like they always get lumped in with industrial, but then they're like a little bit more rock than any other industrial band is. Yeah. But also like there's heavy synth in it. Like, I mean, it's really hard.
Industrial rock. Yeah. I mean,
but I mean, that's probably why they aren't popular. Anytime you can't put something in a box, it never takes off. Like kitchen sink microscopy, or you
kind of have, especially nowadays. Like if you want to be discovered on the internet, you've got to be just like your peers, and you've got to be like, if there's a new like genre of music, you want to ride on that wave. So it's out here, we called her, we had a term like shadow synth, right? But I don't think anybody's used that yet, so it's like, it's almost like appropriate, like you were saying about the hashtag, right?
Yeah.
If you can get at least a few people to be hey, this is the new sound, because everyone's got it, they're going to keep inventing new genres every few years or so, and then they ride on that wave, right? And it's kind of like, well, if you want to stand out, if you don't want to be lumped in with like EDM or something mainstream like that, because you're darker than that, then you have to have like an appropriate term that defines your sound. And that's how all these different subgenres come out. But, if they can just let people discover all of these different types of music, that would be helpful.
For sure.
Here's a thought I had that kind of stems off of that. What do you think of bands that have these, or let's say artists that have these uh Renaissance approaches to music where they don't really fit in a box. Do you think it's better to do it the Altair way and just have like, everything from these synth pop sounding stuff all the way to like heavy metal kind of industrial rock stuff? Or do you think it's better to go like the Al Jorgensen way and make like 17 different fucking bands?
Yeah, I mean, if you make 17 different bands, maybe you're hoping that maybe like a stock, one of them will take off. And if they're all in different styles of music, then maybe it will. But if you're not fitting into a particular genre, like Stabbing Westward was, they had some mainstream success. And unfortunately, with that, with underground music, you're not cool anymore if you have any kind of mainstream success. So that's kind of what happened with Nine Inch Nails. And they kind of drifted away from making underground sounding industrial music to something else, right?
Yep.
And, when that was a brief time in history where underground music kind of got heard and discovered somehow, and now it's sort of like, the industry will push a different sound every year, but none of it is really organic. It's caused, it's like planned out, and they have this idea of what they're going to popularize over the next couple of years. And then, that becomes what you hear on the radio and, what's big on YouTube and all that stuff. And the algorithm will promote that and kind of de-rank everything else. And it does get harder to be discovered, ironically, because nowadays you can make a record in a couple weeks and put it on a music streaming platform and the whole world can hear it. Well, you would hope, right? But then how are they going to find it? And, Stabbing Westward was, they were inspired by industrial music. But if you're not definitively that, well, then it almost seems like there's a sort of attitude, the snobbery that people have, that you have to be as pure to the genre as possible. Like, I identify industrial music as, say, like Depeche Mode's People Are People. That's mechanized metal pipes and banging through, and you're playing it back through synthesizers. And that's kind of the only difference between them and like Neubauten and how they did industrial music, which is the purest form of the genre, right? But yeah, there is that kind of snobbery where if you're, if you mix, a different kind of sound into what ought to be pure goth music or something, whatever the genre is, then I don't know, it kind of alienates people, and you have to try to find a new audience somehow.
Well, I think that cross genre thing does confuse people as to like, well, what is this? Even though really it doesn't matter. It's like if you enjoy it, who cares?
Yeah. I think in the age of streaming, it might be a little bit easier to find success that way,
as long as the system that is you're appreciating the streaming on like serves up things that you'll like. Like the algorithm has to cooperate in that regard. I mean, if you want to, I think that's the thing, is like people don't make it big unless they're following a formula, like the manual by the KLF, right? You just follow the formula of whatever's popular, and there you go, and you'll be popular. But also, then at that point, you're not really being true to yourself. No. It may not be your own expression
proving or anything. A point, but yeah, that's not. It's not authentically coming out of you, because especially the principle of the manual was taking something familiar to everyone and putting it into your head through your own, drum loop or whatever, but you put in there a sample, or you put in like I can pull Yazoo, like Don't Go, and or Situation. I could put it in there and everyone's heard that before, Blue Monday or something, right? And then all of a sudden it's a hit because it's identifiable. Like Sir Mix-a-Lot did that with, there was a group like a girl group in the 90s, or well, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, that had that rhythm that sounded like his song Swass.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that he was behind that, though, right? So there was no litigation there or anything like that. He wrote the song, but you know, it was a massive hit because some people still remember that melody or that phrase that was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
It works every time.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing, I think. Like, I feel like maybe we've talked about this before on the show, but like if you use like somebody's riff and make it your own thing, like whether or not you have permission, that should totally be okay because it's still your own thing. You know,
Yeah.
like Vanilla Ice, like with the Queen and David
Yeah,
Bowie
Mm-hmm.
thing, like, you know, I mean, yes, it was different. It was, you know, Queen was dun 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 dun, dun and he was dun 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 dun.
it
Right?
was flipped. The sample was flipped and it was made into something different, you know, and that was their argument in courts.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, so Information Society is kind of what is really the band that kind of brought that into the courtroom, you know, because
Oh, really?
it started with them. It wasn't their music that was, that brought it into the courtroom, but their use of Leonard Nimoy.
Samples.
Yeah, and his samples. And Leonard Nimoy himself had to come in to call off the dogs. And
Wow.
he came in and got in touch with the record label and said, listen, I don't have any problem with this, but the case had to be heard in court. And the ruling was that you can use that sample from Leonard Nimoy's voice, but you're limited to 8 seconds. So if you sample something, you're allowed legally 8 seconds. And anything beyond that, you know, will have your ass drug into court. So it kind of, you know,
Props to Leonard Nimoy. That man's a legend.
Yeah, for sure, because
Fred Rogers too for similar things.
Into oblivion, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that song would probably be off the shelves now. And it was a massive hit. And you know, it was like if you take you know, the entire instrumental of someone's song, you know, yeah, you're going to get sued, you know, without permission if you use it without permission. But, you know, I use samples all the time. And it is sometimes nothing better than a sample because you have to have a certain voice that really, like in a song like Pure Energy, if you're trying to convey you know, a reference to Star Trek, there's no other way to do that than
well, and that was the
identifiable.
That was kind of like the introduction that sort of set the stage for that song. Like if the song started without that clip, it would be an entirely different song.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And you know, like the KLF being British, you know, there was some controversy there too with they sampled everybody and they made a lot of money. You know, like What Time Is Love? Well, What Time Is Love was their song, but then they did an album before that. And I'm telling, like, this is probably the first mashup album that I have. I think I have it around here somewhere. I was just listening to it the other day, but you know, there was like Beastie Boys, Whitney Houston, there was everybody in the top 40 sampled on that album. And they, you know, they burned £1 million, you know.
Yeah. A publicity stunt.
They burned all the money that they made off of that. But they did it to prove a point that this formula works, right? And they wrote about it and everything. And you know, I mean, to me, that's like the definition of punk right there.
Yeah, it is. Well, what do you think about there's like this sort of conspiracy theory that during their reign, I guess, that the KLF is responsible for spawning like almost every like hit pop artist of the time?
Yeah.
Like a shit ton of them.
Oh, tons. Yeah. And you know, What Time Is Love, I still see redone in other people's music to this day. It's like timeless. And of course they're not suing. They deleted their whole catalog. They don't make anything off of it. I think it's now finally on music streaming services, but yeah, I mean, there was a different legal system in Britain, and once the Information Society thing happened here, I think Britain kind of looked at that and at that ruling and go, all right, yeah, we're going to stop the KLF. We're not going to have this happen to us ever again, right? And all these artists like ABBA and everybody that they sampled, will get paid if they're going to sell their music from this point moving forward. So that's probably why they deleted it, because they would have been sued at that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, going back to the formulaic songwriting, like it maybe kind of like a hybrid system is the way to go, because like we're talking about the music that we do and how nobody really is aware of it because it's cross genre and it's kind of like in a nebulous category, I guess. So what if you use like the manual, the formula from that to create a hit song, but that's the hook to get attention so that you can get people to hear the songs that you really care about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like there's nothing
you kind of just described the way I write songs. Like I do that. I think like what shakes this up, like the snare is coming on the second and fourth beat. Well, what if in the chorus it's on the first and third all of a sudden, and with a little fill to kind of like tie it to the original beat, and that does enough to like keep your attention flowing through the song. Like this was something I wrote down, actually, was like this might be kind of like a controversial opinion, but there are these big bands that everyone considers really great, and I think they're actually kind of shite because they're just so repetitive, like the Police. How many times do you need to say Sending Out an SOS in a row? I mean, really.
I do love Don't Stand So Close to Me, though. That's a good one.
Yeah,
this is the
of course they got great songwriting, and actually Sting's solo, in my opinion, is better.
God, yeah, some of his solo stuff is amazing.
Yeah, but why go with this? Like your entire chorus is like the same words over and over and over. And Iron Maiden does this. I love Iron Maiden, but they are shit lyric writers.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, what if you, as a musical artist, in order to get attention, you create one sellout song that is just there to get attention, to be the hit song, but the rest of your album is like your own personal stuff.
Lots of people have tried that and had very well success with that. If they didn't even have any other hits after that, they at least have some fan base. They can make a living off of that one song if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's not necessarily about making money or topping the charts, but they actually like touring and they like playing songs, and they like, even if it's that one, like Trans X is probably a good example of that. He didn't have any other hits after Living on Video, and he's still out touring to this day on that one song, right? And and it's really, I don't have any kind of snobbery toward that whatsoever. I don't think artists should have to have 40 number one hits. And they're, if they have that many hits, there's probably
you're lucky to get one hit. I mean, honestly.
Oh yeah. Being a one-hit wonder in terms of, being a successful band, a one-hit wonder is like way up there,
Yeah. Well, there's like Aha, which is kind of in that sort of category.
In North America, yeah.
Well, yeah, like, they were kind of two songs off of one album that were fairly popular in the US. But all their, like, some of their other stuff, I have a lot of their albums, and it's all really good stuff.
Yeah.
Just like, and totally, well, similar, but different.
Because their other hits were like in the underground in North America, and then they're big in Europe. Like they kind of had a career, like, Tragically Hip in Canada. They're their biggest band. They've sold more than Rush. They've sold more than Nickelback, more than Bryan Adams, I think, in Canada though, right? So not worldwide. But you know, they're playing at Rogers Arena in Vancouver, and then they're down playing in bars in Seattle, you know, and they are huge in Canada, but nobody, even in the rest of North America, really even knows who they are. But you know, Aha where are they? Are they Sweden,
Swedish.
Denmark? Yeah. So in the Nordic countries, they're a big deal, you know, and they could be playing Cry Wolf or The Sun Always Shines on TV. They could be playing anything and people love it. And you know, it just, some parts of the world have, I don't know, I think radio had a little bit to do with that, because you know, Germany they didn't have you know, one company monopolizing the radio. They had a lot of independent radio stations, at least they did in the day.
Yeah.
You would probably be able to comment on that.
Germany's very open to worldwide music. Like Canadian bands play stadiums here, like Billy Talent. Is one that's like stadium level here, and then they play dive bars in America, right?
Yeah,
even in Canada, I think they're not quite so big.
That's crazy. Yeah,
where they're from, you know, like,
and they get some exposure there. They have a scene, and they have like this ability to promote music that doesn't necessarily have to be top 40, because you have like mainstream FM radio there that still, they play in, you know, heavy metal, they play industrial music, they play stuff that's, you know, not necessarily all of it is pop music, and they are one of the few countries in the world that kind of do that. And you know, that's what you get when you don't have one company or two companies that monopolize the entire spectrum. Everything on the FM radio is ran by, you know, a handful of people. Well, independent radio, you know, you get more variety.
One of the things about having that, like, where you have pretty much one or two companies running the show, is that they tend to focus on the stuff that they want to sell, like the popular stuff. And you don't get to hear, if you tune on, you know, any radio station around the world, generally, you don't get to hear really obscure songs that often, except maybe late at night. They might have a late night thing, like C89 had On the Edge and stuff that played lots of stuff that wouldn't gain any kind of like daytime play.
C89 definitely.
Well, and like two companies is not true competition, because they'll just try to do the same thing better, right? Like you see gas stations across the street from each other charging the exact same, or maybe like 1 penny different, right?
And it's just the same. It's like if Verizon raises their prices, so will AT&T, and then you know,
when it's only two companies, you know, they're probably secretly working together behind closed doors. So I mean, you get that with radio. It's like you don't get any obscure stuff. I mean, you know, it used to be back in the day, you could as a band or songwriter, you know, go into a radio station with a cassette tape that you're like, hey, can you play this? And they would play it. Like,
well, yeah, it's like whatever happened to Battle of the Bands competitions, and you never hear about that. And you know, you have shows like, what's it called?
Still American on the local Idol level, I think, but you know,
covering something, and they're not coming out as a band, they're coming out as a singer, right? But imagine having something like that, where it is like a battle of the bands kind of thing, where they used to do this stuff in like in local communities all the time. But you know, now, I mean, that'd be interesting to see again, though. I mean, things kind of go in waves. The pendulum swings, and when people get sick of things, when it's gone on for long enough, they'll kind of reject it at some point. But I was looking at a top 40 chart not too long ago. I only saw one rock band on there, and they were like alternative rock. And when I listened to them, I wouldn't even call them alternative rock, but all of it was hip hop, and you had a handful of pop artists. And that's been the case since the turn of the millennium, you know, hip hop.
Even before that, really.
Ever since. And prior to that, it was house music. Prior to that, it was what they called electropop. So that'd be like Thompson Twins, Depeche Mode, that kind of stuff, right? But
we had the whole grunge thing too, which was pretty big for a minute.
Yeah.
But
that
just
was
a minute.
grunge was like the last time rock was really in the mainstream top 40, or maybe new metal and that kind of, and that was the end of it. You haven't
But
had
like, if you can't dance to it, it won't hit the charts in America. But you know, like, yeah, this I know this will strike a chord with you. Like, in America, it's thought that you can't dance to rock music, but here in Germany, they have all kinds of rock parties. Like,
oh yeah, when I'm DJing, especially like 80s music, the stuff that really works is AC/DC. It's, you know, it's rock music all the way up to 180 beats per minute, fast, you know, and it's, you know, and you can blend that with, you know, synth pop of that speed, like Take on Me, you know, and Aha and stuff like that. But, you know, yeah, I mean, I just think if you can't dance to it, if you can't dance to something like AC/DC, it's the problem is you and your dancing ability. It's not the band, it's not the song, right? And you know, it's like, really, you can dance to anything with a beat. It's fast enough, you know. I mean, but I think, you know, kids are just,
that's funny, because you know, back in the day, people think, you know, when you conjure up in your mind concept of classical music, right, we think of really slow kind of music and everything. Well, turns out originally the tempo was way faster for a lot of those.
Flight of the Bumblebee.
I don't know that you could do that one faster, but a lot of
Man of War covered Flight of the Bumblebee on bass guitar.
Okay, I gotta check that out. That's a challenging song to play. But yeah, I mean, it used to be that this music, which was public performance kind of stuff, the tempo was a lot faster. And nowadays, we do it all slow and no, it used to be kind of frenetic. And
well, if you go into a nightclub and into a dance club with a DJ and a dance floor nowadays, you'll notice nobody's dancing. Nobody. You watch a video from a club in the 1980s or something, and everyone's got an interesting way of dancing, right? And they were really engaged in it. But people they just stand around now and they're kind of on their phones, or they're filming the DJ or whatever. It's a completely, I know that we sound like a bunch of grumpy old guys, but I kind of want to ask you, is there any truth to that? What the kids have offered to them now, is it, I know it's all relative, but I do believe that there is a golden age for music, for modern music. You know, that there was a period of time that was better than now. So, for example, I don't think techno would ever be any better than it was in the early 90s. You know,
oh, for sure.
A lot of people disagree, but that to me was the golden age of techno.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, electronic music in general kind of like peaked in the 90s. Not just techno, but like, you know, all the bands that fit into that electronic genre, like Apoptygma, Berserk, and you know, like all the like all of their
EDM started kind of emerging during that time period, and it's, I mean, it's still there today. So I mean, I guess people are fans.
There's Gene Simmons saying rock is dead. You know, like,
he's absolutely right though. I mean, like, unfortunately, there's no interest in it at all anymore. And then you have AI that comes out with their own variations of existing songs. Like, I think I sent that one to you. That was Queensryche with Jeff Tate singing. That's what it sounded like to me. I don't know if it was, but it was AI generated. They remastered Silent Lucidity and uploaded it to Tidal on Queensryche's page, right? So if you go on there right now, you'll see that it's called Silent Lucidity 2023. And it is identical to the original, but it's enhanced, right? So the drums will pit punchier. It sounds like a producer got a hold of it, but it wasn't. The band had nothing to do with it, because when I first heard it, I thought, well, maybe they got Jeff Tate back because he sounds a little bit different. But I think it's either that they used a live vocal of Jeff Tate or that it was absolutely artificially enhanced.
Whoa.
AI
I,
generated.
I listened to like the first few seconds of that and I was like, oh, I know this song. Like, why'd you send me that? Like,
Yeah, and
I
that's what I
thought
was
it
saying.
was
It was
just the
not the
song.
band or any human involvement with that. And it comes up all the time. I saw one for Prince. I saw one for, a few other artists, but you'll see it on there when you go into title. It'll say like, say, Blue Monday sped up, Blue Monday with reverb. And the band had nothing to do with it. The label had nothing to do with it. No producer had anything to do with it. And all it is just the same song, but played a bit faster.
Right.
And I'm like, this is stupid. Why are all these bands doing this? And they're not. They're not doing it.
Well, what do you
And
think?
so it makes me wonder what that brings us to for are we going to really have guitar driven music when everything can be synthesized now? And guitar is about the only thing you can't synthesize. Not very well, anyway. Not yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually, going into the AI direction, like, what do you think the implications are of AI generated music? Well, because I mean, it's a hot button topic right now, AI art, where people are like, oh, it's not real art and things. And well, is it real music? Is it like who wrote the music? Because AI kind of is the way it generates things. It's sort of derivative of being taught a lot of information about whatever it's.
I have mixed feelings about it. For the most part, I am for it because I feel like we're kind of stagnant as humans coming up with new ideas.
I agree. I agree. And as a tool for just visual art, AI is phenomenal. Like it can visualize a thing for you that you couldn't possibly, and you can randomize things a lot. So it's like you get a lot of surprises.
Yeah.
And so sure, to me, it's a tool.
I'll tell you what, like some of the greatest melodies I've come up with, I wasn't like playing the piano and came up with this whole thing just like in one fell swoop. It was like, what if I put this note here? It's all random choice,
experimenting,
exactly actually, like AI does it.
Same here. In fact, like a lot of times, I'd be driving around, like driving home from work or something, and I'd have this song idea in my head, and I'd get home and I'd sit down at the computer and I'd start to try to put that in, and I would end up with something entirely different is 1,000 times more awesome than what I had in my head.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, there is something amazing about really kind of not knowing what you're doing. Like that's why I always think a band's first album's sometimes the best, because they don't know what they're doing, or they don't have an audience that they're writing for. And AI though, it's like I've written hundreds of songs, and the thing is, it's always I get about halfway into it and I'm just sick of it, because I spend an entire week just on the drums, just on production, and I hear this damn sound over and over again. I'm just sick of it after a while. Now if I had a tool that did exactly made it exactly the way I'm trying to get it to sound, I want, the same SP1200 sound that was, maybe used in, a certain song in particular. You can tell AI to do that exactly. You can tell it to listen to that. You can generate those the same product. You don't have to do sound design anymore, and that's what takes so damn long.
Not only that, but like, let's say, because I've been in that exact same situation you're talking about, getting up to a certain point and running out of steam, so to speak. So AI could be used to get over writer's block.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely.
Hey, take this riff or this beat or this piece of a song,
or the mastering process, which is like,
God, yeah,
that's maddening. I do a master on a 2 to 4 hour video, and going through it piece by piece. Oh my God. And the thing is, like, it's important that there is some human involvement in it, you're just using it to save yourself some time, but there has to, it's the idea that comes out of your head and it gets transferred into your multi-track editor. That's the brilliance.
Here's something that people need to understand about AI art or generative AI in general, in that like it's not like you just put in a couple of criteria and out comes a masterpiece. You will probably throw away hundreds of bad outcomes before you land on the one that sounds just right or looks just right.
Yeah. I think a good writer does that. They, especially prolific writers, they have no problem shit canning something that they don't love, like right off the bat.
Well, and AI is a tool like anything else. It's like you have to work with it. Like, I mean, should we just throw away hammers and drills? What is a structure built with drills and backhoes and stuff? Is that's invalid because machines were involved? No, you have to do it with your bare hands. No, like these are tools we have at our disposal. Like there was a time when the piano didn't exist.
Yeah, just like digital tools too.
Yeah,
I can't get the sound like I've looked at solid state compressors very similar to almost identical to what I use in a digital as a digital plugin. Those solid state compressors, analog ones especially, I've seen them up 10 20 grand on eBay, and people will pay that because they want an authentic analog sound, but you can master that to sound very, very warm like analog. It's really in the mastering. And is it really worth spending $20,000 when you can get a plugin that'll do the same thing?
Well, let me ask you this: is remastered better than the original? Because this is controversial. Like people really fight over this.
Most of the time it's a mess. But there are some recordings that really do need remastering from the original masters. You can kind of do a little bit from mastering off. Like I have some records that just sound terrible on CD and I can enhance them a little bit, but nowhere close to what I can do with the master recording. But everything in the 80s was recorded to 3-inch tape, and everything analog, right? So mastered for vinyl and all that stuff. And then when it kind of got duplicated onto CD, you lost a lot of fidelity. And you can get back some of that fidelity now, especially with like digital audio that's, through streaming, where you're not limited to the size of a compact disc and 24-bit sampling and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if it's done right, it can sound better. And there's still to me a golden age for the CD, which I would say it would be between 1987 to around 1980 or 1995. That they really got it right. They really got the mastering right. It used to be just like this duplication from vinyl to disc, and those sound terrible.
My favorite CD from that time period was Mixed Up by The Cure.
Yes, that was a great
so good
record. Everything was, it's they weren't redlining anything on the mixer. Everything was punchy, but you could turn it up and it still sounds good. Now, what they did after the year 2000 or so was it kind of started with Sony, where the mastering engineers have what is a decent mix. They send it off to Sony, and Sony goes, we're just going to bump the gain up just a little bit, right? And that sends it above 0 dB and it's clipping. And they want it, because when you put it in your headphones, like this is the iPod generation. So, when it comes on, it sounds pretty good. And then you turn it up and you get distortion. But usually when it's in your ears, you don't really have to turn it up. So it sounded fine, right? And that's why they were doing that. But man, they ruined a lot of records by doing that. If I played it on my home audio system, that those speakers handle distortion really, really well. And you listen to some of that stuff and it's god awful. I mean, a good example, if you really want to know what I'm talking about, is the band The Management, and they had this song called Electric Feel that maybe this was by design, but those drums are clipped as hell, and you can hear it, and the whole record is outrageously loud. Depeche Mode's Playing the Angel is another one. They kind of fixed that on the vinyl release. I think Metallica had that problem also with Death Magnetic, where they handed it off to the label and they just redlined the whole mix.
When I burned CDs and stuff with Death Magnetic songs, I went and remastered them myself because they would like blow out your speakers.
Yeah, put a like high pass filter on it, and it just, man,
it's probably like
that. And I think we're out of that period. I think, but
it's probably like too much meddling from people who don't really they don't have their hands in the dirt, so to speak.
Well, with Metallica, it was overcompensation because they just came off of Saint Anger, where they were like, let's not master it at all, and snare drum is all you hear.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of compression on that snare to get it to sound like that too.
Actually, just briefly, I've got to use the head really quick, but I want to throw this little thing in because you were talking about information society earlier, and then I was talking about interference from the studio execs. You know the story about the song White Roses, right?
No, tell me.
Well, so they had created that song and it was shot down at the studio level, like the executive level. They're like, oh, we don't want that. So the Information Society was intent on putting that song in the album anyway. So what they did, they had a track, I think it was at the end of the album that was supposed to have this, that had modem settings as the song title.
Yeah.
And it was basically a modem connection sound and a bunch of data
all the way down to the
but this is the brilliant part. It was a hunt for pieces of the song which were scattered around in various places, and you would get a little data, and there was part of a story behind it, so you got a piece of the story, and then you go to some website and there was another piece of the story with a piece of the song, and it led you to another place, kind of like a scavenger hunt in a way. And so eventually you could assemble the song for yourself.
That's awesome.
That's like the most badass thing.
Maybe that's what humans have to do to compete with AI, is allow people to have fun with it and kind of customize it a little bit, where they can go into, they can download and some bands have done that. They'll release like the master. You can download the synth. You can download the drum loop, the bass line, all that stuff, and you can put the song together the way you think it sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see. Well, you can do that a lot easier now with stems and with. I have a tool that can yank out the bass line out of any song, and very seamlessly with almost no bleed through whatsoever. And now that stuff is becoming way more common, it's everywhere now. I could see that, people tinkering with songs a little bit more, of course.
I really like that idea. Like I'm an open source kind of person. I don't believe in copyright and all this, like, oh, you can't have access to any portion of this. I own all of it. Like, no, all art is derivative of previous art. Every artist has been inspired by other artists that have come before. As Casey and I are fond of saying, shoulders of giants. And I don't have a problem with people taking something I've created and creating on top of that, just cutting it apart and using bits and pieces and making their own version of it. I think that's a good thing. And this is what is so frustrating about the current state of affairs, especially with YouTube, is like, it doesn't allow for that. Like, the whole copyright system is getting so draconian. Like, why? We should be sharing our music and learning from each other and building upon previous things that we've created. And
kind of about control too, because like, if it's not just music, but let's say a journalist gets a hold of classified information like WikiLeaks and stuff like that, they want to have some legal mechanism to sue you into oblivion, not just sue you, but to jail you also, right? If something gets out there that they don't want out. And now this is the information era, right? Things are going to get out, and they keep trying to put the clamp down and police all this stuff. And then, eventually, like with the Napster and that kind of stuff, what they did to deal with it is they had record companies come out with malware. So you think you're downloading this hit single and you're downloading malware and it destroys your computer, right? And
That's
that was actually
kind of like in the Prohibition era when the government of the US intentionally poisoned alcohol.
Yeah.
Like,
I kind of feel like they're doing that with fentanyl now, you know, to just either discourage people from doing it. I mean, I don't know why the cartels would lace cocaine with fentanyl or something like that, but I mean, it's out there, and it is. They've done it before. They've done it with, you know, in the '60s, lacing marijuana, you know, to discourage people from doing it. So anything that is, you know, taboo to some massive organization, whether it be a government or a private company, is going to be they're going to fight against it with kind of shady tactics like that, you know.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I kind of wonder now, like, speaking of conspiracy theories, is it possible that there are like concept albums or maybe even just songs that kind of contain something that you think is just lyric, right? But it's actually kind of telling like a true story.
Oh yeah.
You know what
Well, you
I'm
know, in
driving
Britain,
at?
they had more censorship and more rules and regulations, that things that you can say and you cannot say on the radio. So you had to get real creative with what you're saying. And that's why I think traditionally everything that comes out of Britain was, you really have to think about what they're saying. And there is a message there, you know. So a good example, you know, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds with the Beatles, that during that time that Britain was censoring everything. They were trying to, you know, put the clamp down on rock and roll, right? And the US was kind of doing that too, but there was a lot more leniency in what you can say or do on the radio. So you had to be kind of cryptic about, and, you know, just like on YouTube with my thumbnails, every one of them has a hidden message in it. And, you know, because if I put it in big bold letters, it's going to get banned anyway, you know. But every one of them has a hidden message. Most people probably don't get it, but you got to do what you got to do, and people will, you know, figure ways to circumvent the rules. They always will. It's human nature.
Well, it's a cat and mouse game, really. It's like back in the day. I'm not going to say that I was in the hacker freaking culture, but let's suppose I was. I mean, it was always like the telephone companies and the government and the FBI and stuff trying to catch up, and you'd have to stay one step ahead, innovate, and come up with new things. And in fact, it's a lot of those people, the underground criminals, who made telephone systems better.
Yeah.
Like, it was that improved things.
I used to dial up the BBS news. Well, I'm not going to say this on YouTube, but I used to dial up the BBS, and there were phone numbers and addresses and credit card numbers that you could use to pay your own ISP.
Including dates of acquisition. So
there was no security whatsoever. There was no encryption. You know,
exactly.
And
now, of course, we're fighting the battle of encryption these days. That governments don't like that because, well, while they keep all the secrets from the general public, they don't like the general public keeping secrets from them. So they want to introduce backdoors, but like mandated by law, things like that. Cryptocurrencies and everything. Can't allow that. We got to ban crypto, and you know
they can try. They can't.
No, the genie's out of the bottle. Like it's out there. It's open source. Like
they can ban physical money. They can get rid of that. They can stop printing actual dollar bills, but crypto will be like the new dollar bill. That's the new cash currency, basically. It's like you can trade with anybody in the world with that, and there's nothing they can do about it.
No.
Thank God, because without that, then we would have a digital currency that someone like the IRS or somebody, or like if you're, you know, uploading bad stuff to YouTube that somebody can come in and penalize you and take money out of your account and be like, here's, you know, a $5,000 penalty. We'll just
Or
take
not only just take money, but completely lock down your account or prevent you from purchasing things that are.
Well, it's happened to people before too, you know, and it kind of happens to more well-known people, you know, but they can do it to anyone, you know. They can be like, all right, well, we don't like what you're saying on YouTube. We're going to take your bank account now, you know.
The thing is, they know that people can just use these systems. So having a prominent figure to punish in a public way, hopefully that their idea is classic tactics, is to dissuade the general public from doing anything they deem inappropriate. Look at what happened to so and so, you know, I shouldn't
end up like that guy.
I better not touch that. But I mean, you know, you combine VPNs with crypto and stuff like that, and I mean, there's nothing they could do, not at all. Interesting tangent there.
I'll have to talk about that in another episode with you guys, or offline or something, because I keep going through this in my mind that crypto, you know, is something that you can have to still be able to buy and sell and trade. But then I can only imagine that would only extend to individuals. Like, I can trade with you, right? But then you're going to have this thing where you go to, you know, a grocery store, you go to a Best Buy, whatever it is, some corporate store, they're like, no crypto here. You can't pay with that, you know? So that's how it will become sort of useless, you know. But you know, if I have something that you want to buy from me and it's taboo, right? You know, that is maybe illegal, you can still get it, you know, by paying me electronically like that.
Little known fact, people can pay for things with Altair songs. So if you want to get some of those, go to patreon.com/KSMvidcast.
And we're starting up our own cryptocurrency.
Altair that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Yes. This is the new one.
I mean, a song could be cryptocurrency now, couldn't it?
I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably a way to do that, right?
NFTs. That's how you'd probably pull that off, I suppose. Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I think we've
Altair bucks.
Altair bucks. Well, I think we've gone through quite a bit here.
We have actually
covered a lot of topics, and I think we'll certainly come back together again at a later date and talk about crypto and the implications of things. There's a lot.
There's other music related controversy that we could always touch on too.
Oh yeah. But you know, we're about an hour in now. I think that's a pretty sweet spot for most of our videos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's ask our guest Troy Lawman, which song from the Within Human Vigor album would you like to hear the 2023 20th anniversary edition of at the end of this episode?
Oh, is there a 2023 edition of all of them?
Almost.
Not all of them yet. There could be.
I've heard some of yours. Let's see. Control-Alt-Delete was not one that was necessarily on the album, so you don't have a 2023.
That wasn't on that album, no. But
yeah, so Manhattan, do you have that one?
I do. I don't have a remix of that one, like a 2023 version, but yeah, that's an option.
The album opener, yeah.
Yeah,
because functional units, you've done that one. That'd be good.
Yeah,
we can go with that.
If Manhattan isn't available when this airs, then we'll go with functional unit. Which, by the way, earlier you mentioned you can't synthesize guitars, but on that one
you can. So yeah, and you're good at that, you know. So that saw blade synth that Gary Newman uses a lot, I can hardly tell. Like when I'm listening to his stuff, it's really hard to tell what's synthesizer and what's guitar. Now, if you're trying to synthesize, let's say, Eddie Van Halen's guitar or
Right.
Mars, somebody
Was
that
that,
has
was
a
it
particular guitar tone, it's hard to do that with emulation.
wasn't what is it? Jan Hammer, right?
John Hammond,
His
yeah.
Jan Hammer, yeah. His stuff was synth, but sounded a lot like a guitar.
Well, a lot of that was a Fairlight CMI,
Oh,
and
what a
what's
beautiful
amazing about
machine.
that, huh?
Oh God.
That
Yeah.
thing is, I don't have so I have Peter Vogel's version of the CMI on an iPad.
I thought
It
you were
is
gonna say
identical to
I thought you were gonna say you actually have a physical
the
one.
damn thing. Like, there was 5 producers in the world that had one, and they go for insane amounts of money still to this day.
Yep.
On eBay. And Al Jorgensen had one. Quincy Jones had one. I can't remember who the other 3 were, but they were in a lot of studios. But as far as ownership of it from like a particular musician, they were so expensive nobody could. The only way to get access to one was to go into a studio. But that Jan Hammer did a lot of programming on the CMI, and he did his whole album on it, not just the sampling, and it had an 8-bit sampler, and what's pretty amazing is, like, if you can listen to that and hear maybe that sounds like a guitar coming off of an 8-bit sampler, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like, because the sound was so unique, you can't really tell what it is, and
wasn't that one of the first synthesizers to be integrated with a computer system?
Yes. Yeah. So you could see the waveforms and everything. And you had tapes, I think, or maybe discs. They might have been floppy disks that you load the samples onto, the drive through these. I think you had like 60 of them or something. And you load it onto it, and you can manipulate the waveform. You can do a little bit of production work. It's basically a workstation. But yeah, Peter Vogel developed that. That was used all the way up into the, as far as mainstream music goes, up into the mid 90s. So it had a long run, from the late 70s to the mid 90s. Now it's still being used to this day, but through emulators, and I hear it in modern music still.
Have you heard of the Area Touch? It's it's like a crowd-funded sort of thing. I have one. I'm planning on making like an unboxing video that'll probably come out in like early 2024. But this thing is like it's like a tablet, but like a large one, and you can customize the graphical user interface to be like almost like a theremin, where you can control different synthesized sounds. You can hit this thing with drumsticks, like, and it takes a beating, and you can play drums, you can do synth, you can record vocals into it. I think, like, it's so fucking cool.
Well, yeah, I think we talked about that once. That thing is cool. I wonder if how far along in development that is, or if it'll be released. I know they're crowdsourcing it, so some of those things don't make it all the way to the finish line.
It's a French product, actually.
Yeah.
Well, if we get enough views and people want to fund this, we go to patreon.com/KSMVidcast and give us a bunch of ducats, and we'll try to buy a Fairlight CMI. I don't have one, but I do have the Teenage Engineering OP1.
Nice.
So I do have that.
Or if you want Emerald Spike.
Oh that's free. Like, just ask me and I'll give it to you. I've got the source code and everything. Well, the source code. For SynthEdit. All
right. Well, that was a damn good episode. We'll definitely revisit this general topic and enjoy the remastered, reimagined Manhattan ore functional unit on the way out. It's a grab
Right.
bag.
Yeah.
You never know. All right, everybody, take it easy.